Hi, Matt. Welcome to Healthtech with Purpose.
Hey Rushi, thanks for having me.
How's the day going so far, Matt?
I'm having a really great day. It's been a busy week, but I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Happy to have you here, Matt. Before we start about the company journey and talk about, all the cool things that you're doing, maybe we will start with your quick introduction and background.
Great, happy to. My name's Matt Smith, and I'm the co-founder and chief technology officer of Embr Labs. Embr Labs is the first thermal wellness technology company and the maker of Embr Wave, which I'll be telling you all about the journey that got us here today and the people that Embr Wave is having a life-changing impact on. My background is in materials science and engineering. I did my undergraduate degree at Johns Hopkins University and then went straight to do my PhD at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, in material science and engineering. I studied semiconductor devices and and specifically nanostructured semiconductor devices. So looking at a lot of nanowires and quantum dots and really ultimately specializing in electron microscopy. But along the way, I also picked up an interest in building scale energy efficiency and in entrepreneurship. And so interestingly enough, semiconductor devices, building scale energy efficiency, and entrepreneurship would converge for me after I finished my PhD and ultimately lead to Embr Labs.
Amazing, and an amazing background, Matt. So it's more like a scientist background doing entrepreneurship and all the tech work. So thanks for sharing that. So going to Embr Labs. So what's the idea and what's the story of the company so far?
So Embr Labs makes wearable heating and cooling technology. And the journey started with the core technology development while me and my co-founders were at MIT. So we entered a hackathon at MIT called MadMech in the material science department, and it was sustainability oriented. We had an idea to develop wearable, low power, personal comfort systems. So something that you could wear indoors to help you feel more comfortable. And this could have a potential impact on climate change and on carbon emissions, because if everyone in a building had access to personal comfort systems, you could use less energy heating or cooling the building. So that was the initial thought experiment, and that's what got us prototyping small, low power, and wearable heating and cooling technology. We developed a prototype and won the hackathon in 2013. And
Amazing.
immediately we were fortunate enough to get covered in a small blurb on wired.com. And that led to this influx of thousands of emails from people, and these people, though, were not necessarily passionate about building scale energy efficiency. They were contacting us because temperature was a huge problem in their life. And they were really excited to hear that people at MIT had developed a new type of personal comfort solution, because they found personal comfort to be a major challenge in their ability to live their lives. So even within months of building our first prototype, we got our first glimpse into that there was a major pain point here, helping people with their personal temperature problems.
Amazing. So, yeah, so one thing led to another, and that's how kind of you started getting feedback from more and more people, and that's kind of led to something that we are of course going to talk in detail, but that's the core story, right?
Well, in a nutshell, so I can tell you sort of a little bit more about this journey. Um, we were fortunate enough to have a number of really passionate and talented mentors at MIT who, when we had this core technology, were willing to take us in and teach us more about entrepreneurship and what to do next.
Nice.
And as probably many people hearing this know, the big what to do as an entrepreneur is customer discovery. It's all about
Yeah.
figuring out who your customers are or could be. So we took our very early stage, very fragile, very ugly prototypes and started trying to do customer discovery. We did an accelerator at MIT, which is now called Delta V in 2014.
Wow.
Talked to many people who were struggling with temperature. And so through customer discovery, our already within a year of building our first prototypes, our focus had shifted from focusing on the environment to focusing on individual people and their temperature problems. By 2014, we were talking to, broadly speaking, men who run hot, women who run cold, and women going through menopause experiencing hot flashes, because these, generally speaking, were the largest and most interested customer segments that we had found through our customer discovery.
Interesting.
We have some funny pictures of doing pilot testing with some of these really old, broken, really old, easily breakable prototypes with our friends' moms, actually. So we didn't know any women going through menopause personally, so we had to ask all of our friends to connect us to their moms. I got to talk to a lot of women about menopause back in 2014, 2015, and drove out to Newton, where our co-founder Sam is from, and did some initial pilot studies with friends of Sam's mother who were having hot flashes. So right away, we were out there, we were using our technology, getting it into the hands of users and trying to understand what it could be useful for.
Very, very interesting. And being a person with tech background, talking to some of the kind of potential people who are having these issues and trying to understand the issue must have been an uphill task.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. It was really energizing for us to receive positive feedback. And of course, all
Amazing.
of the constructive feedback that we received is what led to the product that we have today. So, early
Great.
on, the product kept breaking, and it was just really hard to leave something in the field for an extended period of time. And so those prototype iterations that we had to do just to get to something that we could pilot test ultimately led to the system architecture that we still use today in our second generation product because of the user experience and reliability issues that we had just trying to do our earliest customer validation.
Amazing. So, I think the thermal technology that you mentioned is kind of the core to this, right? Can you explain us the problem that people face, the heat problem that people face, and how exactly the technology works?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned my background's in semiconductor devices. So we set out to make a low power wearable heating and cooling system using a thermoelectric heat pump. A thermoelectric heat pump is a technology that's been around for over 50 years. It's also known as a Peltier cooler, and it's used typically to cool electronics. It's used in optoelectronics to help cool lasers. Um, So a thermoelectric, you can flow electricity through it, and it will pump heat from one side to the other. So if we flow electricity one way through it, it moves heat this way. If we flow electricity the other way through it, it moves heat this way. And so we put a thermoelectric onto our skin and can either move heat away from our skin, and that's cooling the skin, or move heat towards the skin, and that's warming the skin.
Oh,
However, thermoelectric heat systems are considered to be really high power systems. And if you ask anyone who's familiar with them, they're kind of surprised that such a system could be made wearable, because conventionally a thermoelectric system is very high current. And also when you're moving heat away from the skin, that heat needs to go somewhere. So the more cooling that you're doing, the more infrastructure you need in place to deal with the heat that's being removed from the body. So a
right.
thermoelectric system needs a power supply to provide energy to it, and it needs a thermal management system to deal with the heat that's being generated. And because of that, thermoelectric systems are usually they're just large. And our focus was specifically on how can we make a thermoelectric system low power enough to be wearable. Our breakthrough originated from the thought experiment of knowing that we just want to deliver thermal comfort to people who are in buildings. So we were not trying to help people who were in deserts, who are in extremely hot or cold environments. We're just trying to give a little nudge of comfort to people in buildings. And so instead of trying to heat or cool the whole body, we set out to just deliver thermal sensations on the skin that can provide comfort and relief. So we studied, well, how does the skin feel temperature? Because we want to use as little power as possible to generate thermal sensations on the skin. The skin has temperature sensitive nerve endings called thermoreceptors, and you actually have different nerve endings for sensations of warmth and sensations of cool. Fun little science fact is that those nerve endings, the warm nerve endings, are sensitive to capsaicin, the chemical in hot peppers. The cool nerve endings, the cool thermoreceptors, are sensitive to menthol. And so that's
Wow.
why actually feels hot, and why menthol actually feels cool is because our warm and cold thermoreceptors are actually also chemically sensitive to those chemicals. They have some other interesting properties, though. They are also really sensitive to rates of temperature change. So when you're easing into a hot bath, it feels hottest right where the water's touching your skin. And then as soon as you're in the water, it feels less hot. The same for if you're
Yeah.
walking into the cold ocean, right? It's always a battle just to get the water level up your body.
Yeah.
And that's because your nerve endings are creating stronger sensations when they experience changes in temperature. If the temperature is cold but not changing, then you start acclimating, and you don't
Mm.
receive as strong of a thermal signal from the nerve endings in your skin. So that is the behavior that we set out to hack, to try to make as low power a thermal system as possible. And the solution was our patented thermal waveforms. So we developed a system that delivers waves of temperature change that are designed specifically around how the nerve endings in our skin feel temperature, and around the energy efficiency of a thermoelectric heat pump. So we had two systems, and we optimized the operation of this thermal system for both of their requirements. And that was how we delivered Embr Wave, the product, this is our second generation Embr Wave. People can certainly, it's EMBR WAVE, Embr Wave. It's uses a battery. The Embr Wave 2 uses a battery the same size as a smartwatch, uses under half a watt of power, and yet delivers heating and cooling that we've shown in clinical trials can impact people's perception of the room. And it all comes down to really a technology first, kind of really interesting human science interface problem that we solved about how to make a low power wearable thermal system that generates as strong as possible thermal sensations to provide comfort and relief to people struggling with temperature.
Wow, I mean, the more I hear about this, it's like feels like a gadget, from a future sci-fi movie, which is helping mankind. Really, really cool stuff. Amazing. So, you showed us the product. Can you show that again for everybody, who's watching us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Embr Wave 2. Oh, sorry, my
Yeah,
virtual background is making this difficult. Let
yeah,
me see if I can
it's
turn this off. Um,
yeah.
all right, welcome everyone to my living room. Oh, wait. Okay, so this is an Embr Wave. It's battery powered. It has two buttons here that you can use to control heating and cooling. There's also a mobile app, which I can tell you more about because that's also part of our customer discovery journey. On the bottom of Embr Wave is the thermoelectric heat pump. So that's this square.
Interesting.
And it's worn on the inside of the wrist, which is an area where there's a lot of thermoreceptors. So we can generate a really strong thermal sensation, send a really strong thermal signal to the brain by delivering heating and cooling only to a couple square centimeters on your skin.
Awesome. So, just for some of probably the non-tech users who might be listening to us, so what exactly happens with the body as soon as I say press a button for heat or cool? What exactly happens through? I'm pretty sure there are some signals being sent, something happening to the body to get that sensation. So can you explain that?
Yeah, so Embr Wave, physically what the device is doing is just is just delivering waves of temperature change through this plate onto my skin. So it's just changing the temperature of my skin. And it's not changing it very much because, as I said, the sensation comes from the change in temperature. So it's not cooling or warming the skin. It doesn't get any warmer than a hot tub and it doesn't even cool to room temperature. It's really just cooling a few degrees down, but doing so in a way that generates really strong thermal sensations on the skin. These sensations are generated by thermoreceptors in the skin and then carried through an interoceptive pathway to the brain. Interoception was a new word for me when this all started. It's the opposite of exteroceptive, and so what it means is sensations on the skin are being used integrated by your brain to help you understand the temperature of your body and of the room around you. So we've shown in a study funded by the National Science Foundation that this wearable device on your wrist can actually change how much the perceived temperature of the room by about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So we could
Wow.
make, for someone who's uncomfortably cold in a room that's say 64 degrees Fahrenheit, we could help them feel as comfortable as if the room was 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're
Wow.
able to kind of nudge how people feel by delivering this comforting and relaxing sensation. And one thing I haven't mentioned, because I'm all about tech and science first, is it just feels really good. And that was where it all started, was we had a fragile We had a very early prototype. We didn't know what it was good for, but we knew that we liked how it felt. And so that's another exciting thing about what we're doing, and the impact is that what we're giving people is an experience that just feels really good. It's comfort, it's relief, and this technology allows us to give people like the warmth of a warm mug of tea or the cold refreshment of a cold glass of water when they need it most. When you're in the most frustrating moments of thermal stress, you can just have immediate personalized relief. And so that's been a
Amazing.
really, what's kept us going is knowing that what we're giving people is literally a feel-good sensation. And that's easy to keep getting out of bed for in the morning.
Yeah. No, really, really amazing. So, you mentioned about the mobile app as well. So, can you just quickly explain us how that comes into picture and how, it's integrated with the whole tech?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were developing prototypes and doing user testing through 2015 and 2016, and ultimately got to a point where we wanted to deliver a product, a commercial product, as a way to really validate the market that we were seeing in our user testing was really meaningful. I call it now the thermally underserved, all of the people for whom temperature is a major problem in their life. And we can get into all the customer segments that fall into the thermally underserved. But the point being, if you're comfortable all the time, it's easy to take for granted that you're comfortable all the time. And there are people for whom thermal comfort is actually really elusive. Um,
Mm.
so we were getting ready to bring Embr Wave to the market. We did a Kickstarter in 2017, and we made the decision to include Bluetooth and include a mobile app so that we could continue to ship updates to customers as we continued learning. Because Embr Wave was really, there had never been a product like this. Like you said, it sounds like the future. It's a crazy product category because it's a wearable device that is not tracking you. It's actually heating and cooling you. We still have sometimes a hard time talking about what it is that we make. So we knew that we would keep learning, and so we built a mobile app initially, just to let us continue to learn and give updates and improvements to the product over time. One of the things that we developed based on early feedback with Embr Wave was we started developing different modes of operation. So the first Embr Wave shipped with just a 3-minute heating mode and a 3-minute cooling mode and a 5-minute heating mode. And so the very first piece of feedback that we got was, we want this to last longer. So very understandably. So we focused on control system development and developed modes that lasted 30 minutes, got really positive feedback from that. And that was just the beginning of developing thermal waveforms that for different users, for different use cases. And another thing we learned through
Interesting.
that experimentation was the importance of personalization. So letting people personalize the level of heating or cooling that they want, and while also
Mm.
choosing which mode that they would like to use. So through the mobile app, we give people a lot of tools for experimentation and personalization. You can find a heating or cooling mode that is the best fit for what type of temperature problem you're using and then actually assign it to a button on the device so that then it's available for you only one button push away. So we continue to this day to learn from customers and deliver updates through the mobile app, while also giving users this much stronger sense of control through all of the modes and personalization knobs that you have access to in the app in terms of personalizing the experience. And I'd like to just say that, so we started out shipping a 3-minute and a 5-minute mode. Today on Embr Wave 2, we have multiple modes specifically for hot flash relief. We have modes for falling asleep. We have modes
Wow.
that for staying asleep that last all night long. So 8 hours, we can deliver 8 hours sessions of heating and cooling, and as well as just modes for thermal comfort that can be personalized anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour long. So we've really built out the heating or cooling functionality, and it's all been driven by feedback from our customers, understanding who's using the product, and then being able to deliver updates through the mobile app.
Amazing, amazing. So everything's kind of getting together, and more power to the users, as they say, right? So amazing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, uh, uh, great piece of tech. The more I think about it, the more like how was this built, right? So very interesting. So would love to understand a bit more about the customers, the target customers or the customer segmentations, and who are these people, or who's the target audience today, and who are buying Embr Labs, Embr Wave 2.
Absolutely. So we I really think it's not an exaggeration to say that we are now understand the thermally underserved segments better than anyone, because we brought this product to market. We received a fair amount of attention early on, and we've just been listening to our customers and trying to understand who are the people using this technology to help themselves live better lives. And unfortunately, it's not a cheap piece of technology either. This is a really sophisticated piece of technology. It costs 300 US dollars. So we know that everyone who's using this is making a real investment, and we really do everything we can to understand who those people are and what can we do to make sure this is as effective a product as possible for them. I mentioned that it started off with a basic understanding of men who run hot and women who run cold. Um, and from the very first weeks that we had a working prototype, it became clear to us that women in their 50s were really excited about a cooling wristband. Some people, they say, oh, a heating and cooling wristband, like what is that? And you have to talk for a long time about what it is. But some people, their eyes light up and they just immediately can see how it could help them. And women dealing with hot flashes were just like a hard to ignore customer segment, because anywhere we
Yeah.
went, some of the best feedback that we got was from women who were finding thermal comfort to be a real challenge in their life because of the changes their body was going through due to changes in hormone levels related to going through menopause. And so
Mm.
this is a huge customer segment, right? It's half the population. It's a natural stage of aging that women go through. And when they go through it, 70% of them end up having hot flashes, and just being more sensitive to temperature in general. We learned over the course of the first generation product, Embr Wave 1, that people dealing with hot flashes was where we have the strongest product market fit. And so we built Embr Wave 2, paying special attention to people with hot flashes. So this includes women going through menopause, but also women who have been treated for breast cancer, men who have been treated for prostate cancer. We recently heard from a heroin addict and who has hot flashes from methadone. So
Oh.
there's kind of a long tail of reasons that people's bodies can have these heat flashes, these heat flare-ups, which we call hot
Mm.
flashes. So our the product now, Wave 2, serves a lot of segments. Our beachhead customer segment is helping women with hot flashes, but we know that there's a long tail of other people who have hot flashes, and also other populations who have temperature problems for whom Embr Wave is really life-changing. We have a couple of clinical studies ongoing with people with dysautonomia, which is just a general dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. And so thermoregulation is an autonomic process. So people with dysautonomia also often end up with severe temperature intolerances and find Embr Wave to be really helpful for them in terms of being able to live a more resilient life in the face of thermal discomfort. So our original no one was really talking about the thermally underserved. No one in 2015 was talking very much about menopause or hot flashes. And so we had to show potential investors that this was a real market. And so the big milestone for the company was getting to a prototype that was robust enough that we could make 50 of them and actually do some larger scale user field studies. And I'd also like to give a shout out to the Proto Labs Cool Ideas Award, which sponsored the fabrication of our first 50 devices and was really is a great award for hardware companies who just need a little bit of support prototyping their devices. And it was because of that award that we were able to make 50 of our prototypes and do this initial user testing. So we divided up 3 groups of people: men who run hot, women who run cold, and women with hot flashes. Ran about 30 customers that gave 30 customers the device for 1 week. And then at the end of the week took the device back and said, if you'd like, you can pre-order this device. You'll be the first one to get it. We can't tell you what it will look like or when you'll get it. But if you give us your credit card right now, and if you give us your credit card information, we'll hold your spot in line. And so so we were able to show to people who had never thought about temperature, who, these markets were all people weren't quite sure, like, wait, people are going to pay hundreds of dollars for a device that just provides a little bit of thermal comfort. But with that early prototype, we're able to show, look, like 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 people who get to use this device for a week give us their credit card. And that was how, in a very lean way, this was before we had grants from the National Science Foundation. It was before we did clinical studies with Johnson & Johnson. It was before we knew whether or not we'd even have a mobile app. We were able to show that this early stage prototype we had was delivering enough value to people that people were taking their credit cards out. And that was how we were able to raise our seed round and ultimately start building Embr Wave to bring a product to the market.
Awesome. Again, an amazing story there. So, congratulations for the success till now. And as we talk each and every aspect, I'm kind of amazed listening to it. So thank you for sharing all these aspects, right? Moving on. So I would like to understand. So what are the challenges that you face? So what kind of keeps you awake at night nowadays?
Well, so I've now been an entrepreneur for 9 years. 10 years ago, this month was when we started the hackathon. So it's been a long journey.
Nice.
One of the things I've learned as an entrepreneur is how to make sure I'm getting sleep no matter what. So I try not to lose sleep. But I think the general experience of an entrepreneur is a challenging one. I think bringing a hardware device to market adds a layer of challenge to it compared to just a software app. The global supply chains have been increasingly difficult to navigate over the last few years. There's a lot of macroeconomic things happening right now that I think are presenting a lot of challenges to small businesses, small hardware companies. The supply chain is really hard. interest rates going up. It's unclear what the behavior of investors is going to be in the short and medium term, but all of the data coming out right now is showing that like investment dollars are at least drying up in the short term. And so our focus as a business right now, it's kind of, you know, some things never change. It's like ultimately it's just about serving your customer. And so right now it's really about showing that we can build a scalable business and showing that we have good enough product market fit to build a successful business. So we have a lot of focus right now on sales and marketing and on ensuring a stable supply chain so that when we do get large orders from partners or just have good days selling through our own website, that we're able to fulfill all those orders.
Awesome, awesome. You know, yeah, and I mean, some of these challenges are currently the real world challenges, especially on the interest rates going up and the investor challenges, as you rightly mentioned. But, full power to you and your team to kind of help the users and your target customers as much as possible. And hopefully, this scales up. A very, very interesting idea. I keep on saying that because I'm still amazed after listening to some of these things that you said. So yeah. I want to understand, on that note, I kind of want to understand what is the impact that you feel you are creating and, the product is creating for the users and probably then, to the world.
Thanks, Rushi. I appreciate all your really kind words. And I'm really happy to end talking about, the impact that we hope to have on the world. One thing that I've come to appreciate through all of this customer discovery is the significance of menopause in a woman's life and the challenges that symptom management of menopause present to them. And it's not something that I heard about at all growing up, but it's something that now I've been had the exposure over, especially the last 5 years, to really appreciate and empathize with the challenges that menopause brings to women going through that stage in their life. So these hormonal changes that are a natural part of aging, they can lead to poor quality sleep, brain fog, difficulty with emotions, and also hot flashes. And it's been shown that actually menopause has a huge economic burden and also a big impact on our workforce. A lot of
Yeah.
women, women spend their whole careers advancing professionally, juggling the challenges of childbirth if they choose to, and just dealing with a whole lot. And then to top it all off, suddenly their sleep is disrupted and they're having hot flashes all day. It comes with a heightened sense of anxiety and stress. And so for a lot of women, menopause is just a lot to deal with in a way that impacts their ability to be there for their families, their ability to be there at work, and certainly, as we said earlier, the importance of sleep. Any time that you're not able to get good sleep, it impacts
Yep.
people in all sorts of important ways. So we're really passionate about serving women going through menopause, about using the technology that we've developed and the business and team that we've built to continue to deliver the best products that we can to help the incredibly large fraction of the global population that has to go through this transition, and in particular doesn't want to take drugs. We're a totally safe,
Yeah.
natural solution for women that don't want to go on hormone replacement therapy or any other pharmaceutical drugs and just want to manage these symptoms naturally and try to live the best life that they can.
Amazing, amazing. So that brings me to one of the core things that comes out of it, right? So what is the purpose, and how do you see Amber Lab scaling up?
So the um, our slogan for a long time has been to harness the power of temperature, and so it's to use temperature, bring temperature from a primitive tool. We've had blankets and hot drinks for thousands of years, but bringing personal temperature into the modern era with wearable, digitalized, personalizable, and even predictive and automatic heating and cooling for people. And we think there's a real opportunity to use connected technology to help people feel better. A lot of technology doesn't necessarily help people feel better. So we want to help people relax, help people sleep better, help people manage their own temperature problems. Um, and we think that if you take an even step further back, this is a new interface. This is a human computer interface that we've designed in terms of bringing connected technology to our thermal experiences. And so we're
Amazing.
starting with women with hot flashes. Um, but really temperature is one of our five senses. It impacts the human experience in all sorts of profound ways, which probably have to save that talk for another podcast. But we are
Yeah,
really, our purpose here is to harness the power of temperature to help people live better lives. And
amazing,
it's been a journey so far.
amazing. No, and I mean, thank you for sharing some of the aspects of this journey so far, and I can already sense that some of the subjects that you are talking about are really impactful, and not just from a geography perspective, because I think everybody in the world feels these problems. So really an amazing impact and purpose behind the tech that you're building, and behind the existence of Ember Labs. So thank you for sharing the whole journey with us, Matt.
Pleasure, Rushi. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Matt. And thank you, everyone. I hope you loved what you heard. Uh, I think I can speak for hours with Matt. I have so many questions, so many thoughts about this, but I think for now, thank you all, for joining us and going through this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And, I hope you learned a little more about the whole thermal story, and how temperature plays an important role in some of the really basic aspects of a human, I would say. So, and thank you, Matt, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Awesome.